All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started today. And today is going to be a really fun class. It's going to be all about how to present the two-page presentation. Um, it's going to be mostly just how, once you have the two-page presentation built, how do you talk to your clients and to close the sale using it? And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And why is it not working? There we go. Presented today is Jeremy and myself, Alex. You guys all know us. We've been doing these classes for a while now. But we are the trainers at the Market and Sale, the Insurance Pro Shop. And for those of you who haven't heard of our goal, it's all about just bringing a positive change back in the industry. When Lou and Jeremy started the Pro Shop back in 1999, they saw a steep decline in the training agents were receiving, and just saw too many agents fail. And that led to a really downturn in the perception of the industry because people weren't doing the job the right way. So what we're trying to do is just give you the knowledge you need and the training you need so that you can be that trusted advisor in your community so we can change the perception of the industry and really just help the country as a whole. All right. So Jeremy, I think if you want to go ahead and take us away from here.
All right, thank you, Alex. So we're gonna have some fun today, guys. It's gonna be not necessarily a super long class, I hope, but it's gonna be a lot, information packed. So, what's on the agenda today? So we're gonna talk about what is the two-page presentation. What exactly we're talking about here, how and why it works, keys to building a successful two-page presentation. We're going to talk about how to present. I'm going to give you 3 different cases, virtually role played to show you exactly how to present it the easiest way possible. And I'm going to talk about some common mistakes agents make. So you don't have to go through that trial and error period. You just know that, hey, don't do these 4 things, and you have a greater chance of closing. All right. So let's start with what is two-page presentation. Now, I wish I had some fancy name for what we use for our closing piece. You've heard of them called financial blueprints before, financial presentations. Ours is really what we call our future planning summary. And it's a 2 or 3 page document that helps the client see what we're trying to help them do. Okay. So the presentation is really built around 2 different philosophies. Okay. And if you've been to any of our web classes before, you've probably heard these 2 philosophies, and I hope that you have, and I hope you've ingrained them into your personality and ingrained them into your practice. First one is make my client first. Finding the simplest problem to solve that it's a no-brainer for them to buy in. Okay, because long term, who do you have the greatest to selling? Someone who's bought from you before, or someone who's never bought from you? So long term, you're helping people buy from you on the simplest thing, so we can help go back and make those additional changes and help them set those beneficial priorities and so forth. And we'll talk more about this during later in the class. And the second thing is KISS. Keep it simple and sincere. Everybody says keep it simple, stupid. I think that's very negative. Keep it simple and sincere. We want to help convey that we do care about our client situations, our prospect situations, but also keep it simple enough so everybody can understand it and see what we're trying to accomplish. Okay? Because a lot of times when you see these, I won't name any names, but financial software companies, presentations, blueprints, all these different things, and they're overly complex. They're 10 to 15 pages, sometimes they're 30 pages long, with all kinds of graphs and charts and percentages and all kinds of stuff that overwhelm the client. So we want to keep it really simple to see exactly what we're trying to help them do. All right. So how this works, you got to understand another keystone concept is that people buy based on emotions and then justify the decision based on logic. Okay. The reason we build upon that is, when you are, let's see, how do I explain this differently this time? When you reach out people on an emotional level, okay, Understand their problem. You help them see and take ownership of their problem. They want to solve it. Okay, so the whole process, the whole sale is made over emotion. The emotion is what sells. Okay, so it all starts with doing a real good fact find. Okay, that's where the sale is made, is during the fact find process, not during the close, but during the fact find. When you're going through and helping them uncover their problems, finding out the hard and soft facts, finding out the hidden emotions. That's when you're able to transition them into a purchaser or buyer. Okay, because now once we have that fact find, all that emotion drummed up in them, now when we come back with a presentation that brings up the emotion and then gives them the logic behind it, it makes it a no-brainer. And this is where a lot of agents miss out on. They tend to go in and talk about how great their product is. They may ask a few questions, get clients somewhat emotionally invested in it, but it's more of a greed purchase at that point. I don't know how many people I sell infinite banking or bank on yourself, your family bank, whatever it is you're selling. But a lot of times they're trying to focus on the greed aspect of it. How much better off would you be if you had this much money in the bank? If you borrow from yourself instead of back from the borrowing bank. And that's great in a lot of ways. But there's bigger problems to handle first that people aren't thinking about. Because we're trying, when you go in with a preconceived notion, you're going in and trying to sell them what you want to sell them. And I guess that's the difference between me and most agents is when I go into a home, I go in with no preconceived notions. I go in with a wide open slit looking for what is the biggest problem they have and how can I solve it. All right. So, people buy what they want. That's the crux of it. People buy what they want. Want is an emotion. What you want to go out and buy, you're gonna go buy, right? You're gonna buy a new car. If you look at when you go to Walmart, when you go to the store, convenience store, there's always that little candy bar, that impulse buy, right? Impulse, that's an emotion. You're thinking happiness, you're thinking hungry, you're thinking, these are things you want to take care of. But it's all on a want. So that emotion is what makes us do those purchases. And then we always can justify it because I hate spending money. So I got to justify what I purchase, and that turns it into a need. Do I need to have it? Okay, need is logical. So people buy based on emotion, what they want, and then justify the decision based on logic, which they need. Do I really need this? All right. So we're going to talk about building the 2-page. I think, Alex, these are your slides. All right.
All right. Yeah. So the reason we want to talk about building the 2-page first, I know we've talked about this in previous classes, but in order to properly present it, you have to have a properly built 2-page. Your tools that you're using need to be properly set up. And the first key to doing that is you need all the information, which is why the biggest key to making this work is doing a proper emotional fact find. It's getting what is most important to them. So you can use that to show them, hey, this is what I'm solving for you. All right. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's break down the different parts of the 2-page one by one, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right. So on the first page, the very first thing, after ignoring the cover page, of course, is the primary objectives. All right. And what we're doing here is we're looking for what is their most pressing concern. And you did that based on what they told you in that first meeting. And the other part of that is you want to use their vocabulary and their reason. The second part about building it properly is be specific. Always use personal terms. Don't say wife and kids, use their names. So if we have a married couple, uh, and it's Kim excuse me, with a wife named Kim and 2 kids, Lisa and Jerry, we don't want, so let's, and their primary objective was that it was for mortgage insurance. So they wanted the house taken care of if something were to happen to it. So an example of that primary objective would be you want to get the insurance you need so Kim, Lisa, and Jerry could keep the house if something were to happen to you. We're putting the emotion back into it that we got them in that initial fact find. So we're saying, hey, like you said you wanted the insurance, and this is why you said you wanted. This is why you need it. We want to remind them of the why, because the why is what sells. That's what appeals to the emotions. All right. And this goes along with the secondary objectives as well. But this is not going to be the primary concern, but it's something else that you uncovered while doing the fact find. So it might have been, so it's what else are they concerned about? Are there any other things we need to take care of in order to make the primary objective happen? Or is there anything that it goes along with that the primary objective also solves that they were worried about? One example, if we're talking about the same family, is that he was worried that the taxes can only go up. So he would like to maximize his tax-free income in retirement. And that's for this case. He said that his taxes can only go up. He recognized that we have some of the most favorable tax laws right now. So he's worried. We know he's worried about retirement. So reminding him of why and what we're trying to solve. All right, moving on to the assumptions, which is the third section on that first page, and that's were there any assumptions you needed to use to build the case? I know some of the most common ones I have to use are sometimes I don't have their age, or sometimes I have their date of birth, but your date of birth is 1/21/93. You do not smoke and you're in good health. Or Josh, you wasn't sure when you want to retire, but you said sometime around age 65. So I use 65 here as a basis to plan around. Josh, you said you would need at least 500,000 in death benefit to cover all of your needs. You said it's okay to have more, but you don't want any less than this. Right? Always make sure that you're using the names and just break down the reasons one at a time. Because all we're doing with this first page is bringing them back to the same emotional state of why they wanted to take action in the first place, why they wanted to meet with you. We're reminding them of all those things, saying, hey, this is what we're going to solve. Which brings me to the last section, section 4. And that's going to be the needs overview. And all this is a brief summary of what you're suggesting on the next page. It's letting them know, hey, this is basically what we're going to do. We're going to show you all the numbers on the next page, but this is what we're going to do for you. So an example is we're going to start a plan that will not only provide you with the death benefit you need to protect Kim, Lisa, and Jerry, but will also provide you with a tax-free income in retirement. So we're telling them that we have a plan that's going to give you the death benefit you need, which is the primary objective, but it's also going to provide you with some tax-free income, the secondary objective. Okay, but make sure that you're using their words. Make sure that, and it's going to help you so much. And the other thing is never rush through the first page. Take your time. Go one at a time. And you'll see that as we go through the role play next time. But why? I kind of went into this already, but why am I telling you how to build a 2-page presentation? Because I know this class is all about presenting instead of building it. But by using these tips to build it properly, it's going to make your presentation that much stronger. It's going to help you hit those emotional points that much better. All right, so without further ado, Jeremy, let's go ahead and get into our first role play, and then we can explain a little bit more of what we're talking about here.
Sorry, this whole mouse control thing is you don't look at the mouse, so it doesn't let me click on mine. All right, so the first thing we're talking about is Pete and Kathy. A lot of these cases I'm going to go over today are cases that are a couple years old, but they tell a good story of why we're doing what we're doing. All right, in all 3 of these cases, these templates can be found on the Resource Center. All right, so let me start by saying this. There's a couple of techniques I want to cover before we get into the actual presenting, okay? And it's more of positioning, literal positioning on how you present and where you present from, okay? Now, some of it's rule of thumb, some of it's proven fact, okay? But first thing when I'm going into a home to either do a fact find, to do a presentation, I want to be non-aggressive, non-confrontational. Okay, so when I sit in that, when I ask the class to sit down, or to meet in my office or what conference room, whatever, I don't sit across the table from them. I want to be on the same side of the table as them. I want to be the head of the table with them on my left or right. Okay, now typically I want the husband and wife on the same side of the table sitting next to each other. Okay, so I'll sit off to the left of them, with them just more so I can be all kind of on the same side of the table, so it's easier to read. We're not trying to read upside down, not trying to write upside down, that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? All right, so that's one. Two, I try to be very passionate about the situation. Okay, and you shouldn't have to try that hard, to be honest. I mean, if you're in this business to really help people, you do care about where your clients are going. Okay, so those are the two big things I want you to understand is, how and where you sit with them, and controlling your body language. Make sure you're conveying that you do care, that you are empathetic to the situation, and you're here to help. Okay, so the base when I come into a home and do the presentation, I'll come in and thank him for meeting with me today, whether come to my office or go to the home, whatever. Is there a place we can sit down and talk?
Jeremy, we lost your audio. At least I did. I don't know if everyone did.
My back or no?
Not yet. Oh.
Is that
Yes,
better?
we're good.
All right. Sorry about that. Okay. No. Okay. All right. So I'll ask myself, is there a place we can sit down and talk to go over this presentation? And I'll pull out the presentation piece. I only bring one with me. I may keep one a spare in the bag, but again, I want to be able to go through this with them. Okay, so I'll be sitting to the left, they'll be to my right, side by side. And another key tip: do not split husband and wife. And what I mean by that is, if there's a table, right, or you're in a living room at a coffee table, whatever, don't let them sit on either side of you. Don't have the wife on the left, husband on the right, because you can't control. You can't look at both of them and convey the same emotion. That's first and foremost. I've been married a long time, so I know when we do that. Me and my wife do that. We sit there and give ourselves each of us nods back and forth. We have our own little subliminal messaging that goes along, that we can tell each other what we're thinking before we even have an answer. Okay, so keep them on the same side. That's the bottom line. All right, so so when we sit down with a client, sit with a prospect, I'll explain to them. I went back to my office after we talked last time, and I created a plan for you. Okay, now I went through a lot of information. I've combed, all my notes to kind of find the best recommendation for you. Okay, so let's jump right into it. All right, so what we talked last time, one of your primary objectives was to provide money to help you pay for Josh, Brody, and Zoe's college education. You were really concerned about having the money to help them pay for it, if not pay all for it, but also help maximize FAFSA, help them, not have to rely on loans as much as they could, because you've already been down that path. Does that make sense? You're concerned about the term policy you have expiring, especially with Pete's medical conditions. All right. And I would talk with the medical conditions with them, whether, this case is a couple years old, like I said, so I don't remember the whole, what Pete's conditions were. But it could have been something diabetic, could have been cancer, could have been a lot of different things. And I would ask them, how's it going? How's anything changed in the last 2 weeks, last week? How you feeling today? Get them same emotion drummed across. Okay. The other thing you were concerned about is kind of a back burner type thing, but you're concerned about retirement. Will you have enough income? Will Social Security be there when you retire? Okay, and that's one thing you were very concerned about. Now, here are some of the assumptions I used to build this case. So here's the answer to my question. Pete is 49 years old and has/had lung cancer. All right, Kathy, you're 56 years old and in excellent health. Within the past few months, you've sold your acreage and bought a new home, enabling you to save your entire previous mortgage payment. Based on previous conversations, you have very little saved for retirement. Okay, so the recommendation / needs overview, and depending on how you want to position this in your own case, you can use a call recommendation, call needs overview, whatever. Same thing. You want, so basically what we need to do is help you use the money you have saved from having no mortgage to purchase permanent insurance, thus getting rid of the expiring term and creating a plan to get you to and through retirement. Is that what you want to do? Okay. And then I go to the second page. Now, as you can see, this is a pretty big presentation. All right. I only show them that much of it. So I'll take the front sheet and fold it, flip it over on to cover the bottom half up. I don't want them jumping ahead. I don't want them looking for the answers. I want them focusing on what I'm showing them. Okay. Now, right now, Kathy, you have a 30-year term. You're spending $180 a month on it for $250,000 of coverage. And over the next 18 years, you're going to spend about $40,000. Okay. Pete, you have your term policy with West Coast Life. You're spending $158 a month on it. And over the next 18 years, you're going to spend about $34,000. All right. Now, we're also saying, okay, so one thing we talked about with them, because they didn't really have anything going, so we want to put together something showing them what the average family would do with that mortgage payment they had. Okay. So in typical fashion, you have $1,800 a month. Let's put $541 each into a Roth. Let's max a Roth out for you. Okay. And over the next 18 years, you're going to spend about $117,000. It'll grow to about $179,000 and give you an income in retirement of about $7,000 a piece, or $14,000 total. Not bad, right? The rest, because we can only put so much in a Roth, so we'll put the rest in a brokerage account for you, earning the same 7.4%. And that's going to, so you're going to spend another $81,000, $82,000, have about $125,000 and about another $5,000 in income. So overall, you're going to spend about $1,800 a month, or about $400,000 over the next 18 years to have almost $500,000 of value. And you'll have an income, which is mostly tax-free, of about $20,000. Not bad, right? Now, according to our notes here, we're if we invest it in mutual funds, according to Morningstar, you're going to have an annual management fee of 1.39% and a transaction fee of 1.64%. So we use a 3% fee transaction. The 7.4 is basically historical average of the S&P. Less than 5% of mutual funds beat the S&P in any given year. Okay, so what we're saying is, if you put money in the market, you have risk. It's going to earn, approximately 7.4% minus your fees. You're going to earn about 4.4%, which is pretty historically accurate. Conservative investing, right? So this is what you could do. Okay. Now this is what most families do. If they had the same position you were in, and they got this newfound $2,000 a month, this is what they would do. But let me show you what conventional wisdom doesn't allow us, that doesn't tell you, and let's look outside the box at some other options. Does that make sense? And then I'll go down to the next section. So based on your situation, Pete, you have the health condition, so you can only do so much with your term policy, right? So we have to keep it West Coast Life. So I think it was West Coast Life, and we're going to do a $300 a month IUL on you, Index Universal Life. Okay. Over the next 18 years, you're going to spend about $61,000, and in 18 years, you're going to have about $81,000 of cash value. This will spin off a tax-free income of $10,764 a year. Okay. The remaining of the money we're going to put in Kathy, because Kathy's healthy and younger, and she's a woman, so she gets better rates, of course. So that will buy her about $700,000 of cash, of death benefit. And over the next 18 years, she's going to spend about $324,000 in premiums. The best part is, in that end of the 18 years, she'll have about $500,000 of cash value just in her own policy, and that will give her an income of about $60,000 a year. So for the same $1,800 you're spending right now, we're going to give you both more, either the same or more insurance. We're going to spend the same $385,000 or $388,000 total. We'll give you $50,000 more and almost 4 times the income. Which plan makes more sense to you? That's the whole thing, guys. That's as simple as it is. You're helping them to understand the pain, right? You know, provide money for Josh Brody in college education. Do we have cash value to him to use for that? Absolutely. Are we giving them the retirement income they need? Absolutely. Have we secured Pete's future? Absolutely. We've converted the term policy. Now he'll never be without insurance. Now we can't get any more insurance for a couple more years until that cancer diagnosis is 5 years old, and see how things go from there. But this puts them in a better place. You know, and then we cover the notes. Income from the IUL is tax-free, just like a Roth IRA, with no restriction, no other withdrawal penalties. Provides insurance that will not expire, and you have access to the cash at all times. Great positioning. Okay, now, which plan do you think they took? No brainer, right? Cut and dry. If I can, get 66% more income, roughly, have more cash growth, have tax-free access to it, the same exact dollars I'm spending, it's a no-brainer for them. All right, so let's go into case 2, Jim and Melanie. Now, when I do these plans, when I'm building these plans, okay, I will change this title to what I'm trying to help them accomplish, make a subliminal message of sorts. Okay, so if I'm doing financial planning for somebody, I'm doing retirement planning. If I'm doing more early mortgage payoff, if I'm doing income planning, I will rename this page accordingly. Okay, so this is another case. I'll put it on the right screen here. All right, so this is the title I was talking about. You can change at any point. Again, on the resource center, on any of the systems, there are templates for all these presentations that you can are word templates. Make them very, very easy to use. All right, so this couple was a little different. All right, younger couple, but they were concerned about retirement. They wanted to create a stream of tax-free retirement income. Now, we had talked, or the agent had talked to them about it, and asked them, about Social Security, about having the government involved in their retirement plan, and if taxes would go up or down in the future. Had all those conversations that we have with our clients, and they established this fact. So when I do these plans, if they tell me, I don't want to pay some extra tax dollars, that goes in the plan. I want to use their words as often as possible. I don't want to write paragraphs that what I think they want to do. I want to have direct quotes of things they said in their words, because then they reassociate with it much easier that, oh yeah, I did say that. Okay, so Jim and Melanie, per our conversation last time, you were concerned about retirement. You didn't feel like you had enough, being safe for retirement, that you're behind the 8 ball. You wanted to create a stream of tax-free income in retirement because you didn't want to have to pay up to all these tax dollars. You weren't real thrilled. You already hate paying taxes, And the thought about paying increased tax at retirement didn't really make you happy, right? All right. You also said you didn't lose any more money. You hated the money in the market. You lost money in '08, and you just wanted to have more safety to what you're doing. Again, you don't want the government involved in your retirement plan. I 100% get that. They can't balance their own budget. What makes you think they can balance yours? Uh, things like that. So Jim, you're 42 years old in excellent health. Melanie, you're 38 and in good health. You plan on full retiring at 18 years, age 60. You currently have $160,000 in a Prudential IRA, which is subject to market risk. I believe it's a variable IRA, or a Prudential IRA is just a non-annuity, sorry. And you currently have about $500,000 in term insurance on each of you. You both have a 401k, which you're putting money above the match. You're not planning on Social Security being when they retire. And bottom line is, you stated you need approximately $120,000 a year in today's dollars in retirement. So the bottom line is, we need to get you a plan that's going to help you generate that $120 a year in income. Does that make sense? So here's some the needs overview recommendation, we're going to call it. We're going to replace the term insurance with permanent insurance that you cannot live. Okay. We're going to reposition the foreign contributions to fund a bank on yourself plan. And we're going to remove the IRA from market risk and place it where you can maximize the growth and income potential. So those are the things we're going to try to accomplish. Does that make sense? How do you feel about that? All right, have a conversation. Okay, so let's take a look at where you are now. Again, I flip it over, only show them the top section. All right, now, and I gotta go line by line with it. So right now, this is where you are today. Okay, this is your statement of affairs. All right, you have a Prudential IRA, which is all at market risk, all mutual funds and so forth. You have $160,000 in there. Over the next 15 years, that 160 should almost double and grow to about 288,000. Not bad. By age 60, you'll have about 324,000. So, and that will generate an income, at 4% of about $12,965. Okay. Client M, you're putting $1,458 a month into your 401k. You have $45,000 in there now. And over the next 18 years, it's going to grow to about $804,000 with your match, everything else. And that's going to give you a taxable income of $32,185. Mrs. Client, you're spending $833 a month. You just started the new job, and you have about $1,500 in your account right now. And over the next 18 years, it's going to grow to about $344,000. And again, spit you off an income of about $13,777. You both have terms. You're spending $120 a month on those term policies already. So the bottom line is you're spending, $2,400 a month. And by age 60, you'll have about $1.473 million accumulated. Not bad. Off to a great start. Now I'll give you a multi-taxable income of $59,000 a year. But the big problem with that is all that income in the 401k is at risk. What would happen if we had another 2008 happen and you lost 30% of that in retirement? How would you feel? Would it make sense to safeguard that asset so you can't lose, only win? Would that be something you want to do? So let's take a look at what we can do a little differently. All right. So we're going to reduce what you're putting into the 401ks for both of you, just to what they're matching. Because anything above the match, you already don't want to have the government involved in your plan, but you're putting money hand over fist into your 401ks, which is going to cause you a major tax burden later on, right? So combined, you spend about $1,000 a month still on your 401ks. And you'll have about $700,000 of value at retirement. So that'll give you about $30,000 of income, which is all taxable. Okay, nothing we can do about that because you already have balances there, so there's no point. Take the rest of the free money. It makes sense, right? We're going to move your Prudential account to a guaranteed income annuity. That's going to have modest earnings, but it's going to have a guaranteed roll that's going to provide income long term. So with that roll up in earning, it's going to spit up about $14,000 a year. Again, it's going to be mostly all tax because it's an IRA. But rather than having 13, we're going to get almost 15 out of it. And the best part is there's no more market risk on it. It's guaranteed 100%. All right. We'll take the balances of what you put in your 401ks and open up 2 index lives for each of you. On Mr. Client, you'll have over $500,000. On Mrs. Client, you'll have $654,000 of death benefit. By the end of the next 18 years, you're going to have $178,000 yours and $210,000 in yours. The best part is it's going to split off a tax-free income for you both. $18,000 for you, Mr. Client, and $21,000 for you, Mrs. Client. So overall, you spend the same $24.13 a month, not a penny more, a penny less. Your accounts are going to grow to $1.449 million. So a little bit less on the growth side. But the big thing is it's going to spit off $82,000 of income, with a big chunk of that being tax-free. All right. Now, on top of that, so that's a pretty good deal by itself. On top of that, the income increases by 3% a year to keep up with inflation. Those increasing lifetime income payouts. All right. Income from the IUL is tax-free, so the government's not involved in it. There are no withdrawal penalties on your money. You get to have the upside of the potential of the market with the downside risk. And the absolute best part is, where you're both young, these plans are self-completing. If you become sick, disabled, the company will pay off the plans for you. Which one makes more sense to you? It's really simple, guys. If you just walk through the steps, we're giving them exactly what they wanted. We're showing them how the emotion they had is valid, and we're showing them how they can accomplish their goals to make them a client. Okay. When we're saying make them a client, I have some guy tell me, well, I don't want to sell term. No, that's one way of doing it. That's not, you don't have to sell the cheapest thing to make them a client. Remember, nothing we do is about price. Everything we do is about problems and value. Okay. They value their retirement. Their problem is retirement. They don't want to lose money. Can they lose money in these 3 things? Yes, they can lose up to 100% of their asset. Does that scare the hell out of them? Yes. If we can reposition this and accomplish what we wanted to accomplish with them, is it a no-brainer for them? Absolutely. We're giving them guaranteed income here. We're giving them guaranteed income here. And we've minimized the risk they have moving forward. Because now, where they had $1.473 million of at-risk money, we have about $1 million still, but we've moved 400 some thousand out of that. Actually, more than that. They only have about 600,000, 700,000. So that's essentially cut it in half. These plans pay out very well for both the client and and the agent. All right. Now let's talk about Leroy and Mava. All right. Anything you want to add? I will take a sip of my coffee.
I think you're doing a great job so far. I had one thing, but it's just, you already went off, so it's fine.
Yeah, guys, you have to practice this. I don't do this often enough to be fully 100 versed like I used to be. But the more practice you are with delivering the material, delivering the plan, and again, you're going to be more versed with your actual case. Whether you're calling me and Alex to help you build the cases, or building them yourself, you're going to know more of the ins and outs and things they said because you were there. Now, I'm trying to remember going back 2 and 3 years of some of these cases, trying to remember what we talked about. And we've changed the names of all these to make them, legal to have them out there. So it's trying to remember each case with a fake name. It's a little tougher than normal. So, when you're doing these, just, review it before you go out there, practice it in the mirror one time, write some notes down to have what you're trying to accomplish with it. I have an agent on my mentoring program that we go through and role play just about every case he does, to go through it to make sure he knows exactly what we need to talk about, what he needs to say, what we're trying to accomplish with this. So I build I'll build all his cases out. I give him all the illustrations. I give him all the information that he can go back to his client with. But I have to make sure he understands that's what we're trying to accomplish with it. Okay, but keep it simple. I think these come across very simply, but also give them the benefit of what we're trying to help them do. Yeah, Alex?
Yeah, and one thing, guys, is if they have a question, don't be afraid to use a third or fourth sheet to answer that question. And like one of the things I always do is I always bring a notepad with me. And we have all those 5-minute presentations. You guys have heard them, but use those saying so on the last case, this is what reminded me of it, was that the income generated from the IOL was a lot higher in ratio than the income generated by the IRA. Just show them the 5-minute presentation about that. Anytime, you don't have to get into the technical details. Just show them the simplest way to answer the question. You don't have to go through, oh, it's because of this, and this, and the bonds, the portfolio, the returns. They don't care. They just want to know how it works, just so it makes sense to them. Show them the process, and that's what the 5 minutes do. Don't be afraid to use them in conjunction with this.
If you guys haven't noticed, I haven't mentioned anything technical about any of these plans. I broke it down to give them, tax-free income or taxable income. I gave them the biggest term I use, I think, was self-completing. And I may explain that to them a little more in detail. But I don't talk about caps, spreads, rates, PE ratios. I don't get any of the technical functions. It doesn't matter. It's helping them see the problem, fix the problem. That's what people want to have happen. All right. So let's jump into our third and final case of the day. This is for an older couple. And again, you can change this. For this one, I use future planning summary because we're just trying to plan some, liquidity issues out for them. So based on our conversation, Leroy and Mava, you have some very valid concerns about the liquidity of your money. You're not happy with the lower return of your savings. It kind of scares you that you're not going to have enough income, you're not going to have enough growth, that you're not just going to last your lifetimes. All right. So the objective we wanted to really get to, the big problem you wanted to solve was we want to find out what vehicles were available for you that can give you a better return while providing, more liquidity. That was the overall, job you assigned to me, right? So let's look at the assumptions we used for when we built this case, based on our based on our discovery interview from a week ago. Leroy, you're 74 years young and in excellent health. Maybe you're 69 years old and excellent health. You currently have about $127,000 in a money market account with Randall Brooks Federal Credit Union. This account is taxable and it's earning 0.3% a year. So if it's earning 3% a year or 0.3% a year and you're paying taxes on how much you're really getting, how do you feel about that? All right. So our recommendation.
One thing, Jeremy, before you move on, is I know that he's going very fast, but make sure you're letting them answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying after that, let them answer, and then after they answer, then you say, well, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, use pregnant pauses, guys. That's probably one of the most effective things you can do. If you don't know what a pregnant pause is, watch Columbo. He was great at this. But basically what you're doing is you're stopping to let it sink in before you say anything else. So you're actively listening to what their responses are. Because you might have to answer a question before you can move on. This isn't going to be a 15-minute lecture with a close to automatic money. No, they're going to have some concerns. They're going to have some potential objections, not very often, but they'll have, feeling questions they want to feel out still. So, take your time, go through it line by line. Again, I'm not role playing with anybody in front of me, just you guys across the computer screen. It'd be different if someone was on the mic with me, responding. And maybe we'll do that next time. Okay. So our recommendation is to move money out of the money market account to other vehicles that provide a better rate of return, tax deferral, while still maintaining some liquidity. Because in the real world, I know you want to have liquidity and rate of return. You've heard the old saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too. This is one of the situations, unfortunately. So we're going to do the best we can to help you achieve your objective, but bear with us. All right. So let's look at where we are right now. You currently have a money market account with $126,380.83 in it. It's earning 0.3%. And over the next 5 years, it'll grow to about $127,758. And over the next 15 years, $130,325. The good thing about money market accounts is it is liquid. You can pull all your money out and not have to worry about it, right? Pull it anytime you want to have to go spend it on whatever. The problems are you have a taxable return. That's not tax deferred. So you're paying taxes on the interest you earn every year. Okay, so you're actually lowering your rate of return by doing that because you 0.3. If you're in a 10% bracket, you're losing 10% of that 0.3. 25%, you further compounds the lower return, right? You already have an essential lower rate of return because it's a money market account. The banks don't want to pay you what it's really worth to them. All right, inflation. We had a conversation about inflation with them. Inflation is eroding your spending power. What's the average inflation today? Let me ask you. You guys are in your almost in your 70s. 30 years ago, what was the cost of a loaf of bread? $1 a loaf. And today, what is it? Up to $3 a loaf. You think it's going to keep going at that rate, or is it going to slow down or get worse? All right. And then on top of that, you have bank fees that can eat your return. I don't know. We had a conversation about fees, but didn't know what they were paying fees or not in the money market. Some banks have an $8 a month fee, sometimes $10 a month fee. So you're earning interest, but you're still taking fees out of it, so you're still not earning that much. All right. So let's look at something a little differently. All right. So we're going to leave $26,000 in your money market account. All right. The reason we're doing that is to give you 100% liquidity. All right. So you still have access to $26,000 anytime you need it. It's still going to grow the same 0.3%. In the next 15 years, it'll grow to about $27,000. Not bad. All right. We're going to take $50,000 of that money and put it into a fixed annuity. It's going to guarantee you 3.1% for the next, I think it was 10 years? Well, 3.1% first year, then 3% or more over the next 10 or next 9. All right. So that 50,000 is going to grow to 58 over 5 and almost 80,000 over 15 years. Okay. Last, we're going to put 50,000 in an index annuity. Now, this has some market risk to it. Again, the floor is 0. So that's the worst you can do in any given year. But you can have a much greater upside. So if we look at the historics of what the market has done based on the way the policy is structured, it's going to average about a 4% return. So that 50,000 will grow to about 90,000 in the next 15 years. All right. So overall, for the same 126,000 you have in your money market now, that'll grow to 130,000. We're going to help you grow it to 196,000. Which plan makes more sense to you? All right. And then we go through the notes. You know, you know, 3.1% guaranteed the first year. If it rate drops below 3, you take your money out and walk away. Had a bailout feature. It's wonderful. All right. Both the news have a 10% penalty free offer after the first policy year. Some pros, you have greater returns. You go from 0.3 to 3 or 4%. You have tax deferred returns. Okay. You don't pay tax until you use the money. Right? You have a compounding rate of return, where the money market only gives you 0.3% a year on your balance. Our money grows. You pay taxes on every year. You pay fees and so forth. Ours have no fees, and your interest earns interest. Now the cons, again, the liquidity issue. Kate needed to comment. You always have access to your money, but you have to may have to pay a fee to access it, called the surrender charge. After the first year, you have 10% penalty for withdrawal from each account. That amount is free of charges. Okay, so again, would you rather have 130,000 or 196,000? Keeps it really simple. Okay, we're trying to give them exactly what they want. We couldn't achieve all the goals. I can't fix the world. We can fix this, and we fixed a portion of this. Having liquidity is great. Why do you need so much liquidity for? There's questions you can ask to help understand where they're coming from. And they wanted half their money liquid. I didn't think that was a good idea. I asked them once last time I tapped into it. They said I haven't tapped into it in 5 years. So it's been sitting there growing at 0.3%. So that's why we could go a little more aggressive. They still have 26,000 the first year, and then they have another 5,000 for each product after the first year. So they have $36,000 available to them within a couple of days. And we have given them, greater returns on their money, conservative returns with no risk. Because they couldn't stomach putting them in the marketplace, in the stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Could they stomach a 3% return? They loved it. As a matter of fact, the agent actually sold all this instead. 100,000 into the Western United fixed annuity. It's just keep it really simple. These plans are designed to help make them a client. Does that make sense?
2 things before you move on, Jeremy.
Yep.
And the first one is yeah, I love the point that you made is don't be afraid. The presentation isn't a do this or do nothing. It's a starting point. So they said, hey, I really like that one. I don't like that one. Well, let's put it all in that one then. Do what they want as long as it still makes sense. Don't make sure you're not screwing them by something they don't know.
Yep.
But don't be afraid to adjust it to what they feel comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of that is when you do get into objections, to say if I need to think about it, when you don't get it that almost never with this presentation, but when you do, I always ask the same question. You're having some hesitation. What did I miss? I'm not trying to hard sell them, because when you're doing the fact find process right, you've already covered all the bases, so it should be a no-brainer. If it's not a no-brainer, that means you missed something. That's why I always ask that question. And that's all you got to do, guys. And just go from there.
Yeah. It's really simple. Now, I just had a question pop up that I want to address. Yeah, Marshall. You can use either product. I've done it with annuities, disability insurance, final expense, whole life, IUL, UL, VUL. I present everything on these things. For a lot of the strategies, yeah, the whole life works seamlessly into them. It's a little more conservative investment. You're going to get a 4% guarantee on your money with a little less upside to it, but you're paying for that guarantee on the whole life, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. It's just depending on which product you prefer selling. Which product's more in your wheelhouse. Now, with some of my clients, I do sell whole life still. If I have clients that are just completely risk adverse, who don't really, the kind of people that want to put money under their mattress, I'll show them a whole life with no risk. They get a 4% guarantee on it. With my younger clients, remember, I'm 42. My clients are all between 25 and 55 with a lot of time on their side. And they're already conditioned to, when they go to school, they took investment classes, financial classes in school, and they were all taught the same thing. Put money in the market, put your money in your 401k IRA, should be set. So I don't want to dispel all their myths, when it comes to helping them plan for their future, because the stock market has some potential if it's positioned properly. So that's why I prefer the IUL personally, for that reason. But either way, you can use either product. All right. So let's finish up with some common mistakes agents make. I want to tell you these so you don't make them yourself. Okay. So first one is, you don't go too big. Don't try to take all their problems and solve them in one big plan. I've had clients go in there trying to do bank on yourself, misfortune, equity harvesting, do a refinance, do all this stuff right from the start, and they end up losing the case. A lot of what we teach is taking baby steps. Find one or two problems that we can solve right now. Make them a client. That way we go back in to do a 6-month replan, annual review, whatever, that we have other selling points, other sales to make. Does that make sense? All right. Eliminate the moving parts. Focus on, how it's gonna benefit them rather than how it works. All right. I don't talk about cap spreads, par rates, none of that crap. Doesn't matter. Let me on Alex.
Nope, I think you're doing good.
All right. Don't be too technical. Don't be talking about the product specifics. Well, how great this company is. Internal rate of return. Getting into the weeds, as we call it. Getting into the minutia of the plan. Getting into too much detail on the back end. I've had, income planning is where we get into that a lot of times. Talking about when it takes Social Security down to the day, month, getting into creating bridges, and it's very, very specific details that you can really top level to kind of show them where they need to go. Not as much as the technical of how we accomplish it. Does that make sense? It's our job to implement, our job to put the steps forward, but it's our job also to keep it simple for them to understand it. Remember, they're not financially trained experts. I'm not saying our clients are stupid, because that's not the case. Our clients are great at what they do, and they're super knowledgeable at their field of practice. Now, am I smarter than my field of practice? 100%, absolutely, every time. Okay, so I want to keep it as simple as pie, as simple steps moving forward, so they can understand exactly what they're accomplishing, but not how to do it. Does that make sense? All right. And the one thing I've yelled at agents for this more and more over the years is giving options. You are the advisor. You are the person they picked. They're using you to give them the best information possible. Giving options means you're indecisive on what they should do. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a backup plan. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when I do not go with, here's A, B, and C. No, that's crap. It does not work. You want to sell price, that's how you sell price. You want to sell yourself as an advisor and really help people, then you give them one option. Now, we can work on changing the option, bringing the price down, bringing the cost down, lower death benefit, that kind of stuff, but I'm giving them one. I'm the advisor. They need to listen to what I'm telling them to do. Not being conceited, not being, this is what they hired me to do. They hired me to help them fix their problem. And I want to give them the decisive answer. That's why a lot of just lose sales. Like, well, so you could do this or you can do this. No, pick one. Pick one from your gut. Go with that first. Now, if they say, well, I can't afford it. I can't afford to spend money a month. I really don't have free up money to do it. Then I may come back with, we can do term with kind of with us, get you started at least. Or here's a small policy to get started with. But it's after the fact. I'm coming in with my plan. Okay. The other thing is, which I didn't put on here, is it's an old school philosophy Lou taught me back in the day, is you always show high. Okay. You never go with your lowest price first. You can always go down. It's really hard to go up. So if you come in with a $10 a month term policy, I want to go up to $100 a month whole life, it's very rarely going to happen. But if I go with a $100 whole life and they balk at it, I have a $10 term I can fall back on. Does that make sense? All right. And the biggest thing is, don't confuse your prospect. Once you confuse the prospect, you've lost the sale. Period. It's hard to recover from. Keep it really simple. Help them see what their problem is. Here's our solution. Here's how you improve on it. That's it. All right. So, Alex, you have a pro tip on here?
Kind of got ahead of myself a little bit, but yes, this is what I was talking about earlier. Just make sure you have a yellow pad to 5-minute presentation on if they have any questions throughout this thing. Some of the ones I use most often are everything I know about life insurance, indexing versus market, investing in the market. Sorry, it's a little tongue-tied. Sometimes we talk about the seed versus the harvest. That's another big one that we use a lot. And there was one more.
Probably recouping losses.
Yes, that one. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, literally we have 30 or 40 that we use with our clients. We try to outline a lot of them in these web classes. But if you want to learn more on, we went through a lot of information on presenting today. We didn't have a lot about the fact finding, the question technique. We didn't talk about the presentations a lot, 5 presentations and whatnot. Take a look at the videos training. I mean, this puts it all together for you guys, and it has 1 year of coaching now. So for $500 to get a year of coaching, 1, you can't beat that deal. 2, we do 2 or 3 cases, we help you get started. 3, you're getting some great video trainings to help you throughout the process, from finding the right prospect to asking the question that set the appointment, all the way to closing and reviews to follow up with. All right. Hate being a salesperson, but that's what it is. All right. Do we have any questions? I guess that's what we'll end up on. These techniques, guys, we put these classes together to really help you guys focus on and hone your techniques, hone your strategies on helping your clients. That's what we're trying to help you guys do. We talk about becoming the local trusted insurance advisor in your local area. We want you guys to be what we were to our clients. It was to a point, like I know when Lou was in sales full time, he was hard on his clients in a lot of ways. He'd take their credit cards from them. He would, he wouldn't candy coat things for them. He would be nice about it, but he was trying to help them fix their situation. Some almost tough love situations too. We can't always be the hero. Well, let me rephrase that. We can always be the hero. We can't always be the nice guy. There's been numerous times I've had to come in and yell at my clients nicely and tactfully, but it's we have to get our points across sometimes, and that does take some tough love. I think we got a question that came in. How similar is the process for the Mortgage Accelerator client prospect? What's the difference in terms of approach? Very similar. There's two ways you can present that. Okay. With the mortgage system, you have the early mortgage payoff software, which is great software, really bottom lines for the client. I still use the 2-page to approach it because it's the same philosophy. It's showing them, just alternating the goals. So we're not showing them retirement income. We're showing them, here's your mortgage today. If you keep making these payments or mortgage payments, here's where you'll have it paid off. And you're kind of giving them the 10,000-foot overview of where they are today. And then combining it with, what we can do with our life insurance plan or annuity or whatnot. That makes sense? Alex will call Alex after the meeting, Marshall, and Alex will walk you through how to find the software on the USB drive. All right. Any other questions today? You guys are quiet today. I like it. It either means I did a really good job or y'all fell asleep on me. All right, well, if you got no more questions, guys, this class will be uploaded to the Resource Center tomorrow. And you'll have access to it forever, as far as I can tell. But anytime you have a question, concern, the number's on the screen, give us a call. We're here to help you guys. If you purchased systems in the last, couple months, last 6 or 8 months, call for your coaching. Give us a call, set up a time to do some role playing, talk to me or Alex, do some questioning technique training, work on a case together. We're here to help you. And yes, Marshall, I'll have him call you today. I was supposed to call you yesterday, but long story. Other than that, guys, have a wonderful rest of the month. I know Thanksgiving's coming up, and we're grateful for every one of you guys who are part of the Resource Center, part of the IPS family. We really truly appreciate you guys more than you guys know. But, and I hope you guys appreciate us, and we do our best to really help you guys. And if you have any comments, any concerns, anything we can do better, let us know. We talk to thousands of agents, but any feedback we can get on our presentations or classes, what you think, little reviews, all go a long way. So feel free to share us, get us in front of other agents, what can we do to help you guys better. All right. Make sure some questions on here. Other than that, guys, again, thank you. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Our next class will be December 18th. We're going to talk about the Roth IRA alternative. There was a class change. The roundtable has been pushed off till January. But we're going to do something on the Roth IRA alternative, which I think is going to be kind of cool, kind of different class, more a how-to class. But other than that, everybody, thank you and make it a great day.